Hi there. This is a tutorial on getting started with GIMP. GIMP is a really easy program to use once you learn it. What we'll do in this tutorial is create a new image. We'll work a little bit with layers. We'll add some simple shapes to each of the layers. We'll work a little bit with colors, the bucket fill tool, and the move tool. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. To open a new image, we'll go to File, New. Here you'll see a new image dialog box. Let's go ahead and set the width and the height of the image to 500 pixels. Make sure this drop down is in pixels. Mine defaults to it. Now GIMP normally defaults to your last default settings. So if at any time during the tutorials your settings don't appear to be the same as mine, press pause on the video. Make sure your settings are the same so that you'll get the same results. If you want to experiment with different settings, that's also perfectly fine. Next, what we'll do is we'll expand the advanced options. We'll leave the resolution at 72 pixels per inch. That is standard. We'll fill the background with a transparency. What that means is our background will just be transparent. And in the comment section, you can change this comment to whatever you want. I'll just leave it like it is for now. All right, now hit OK. You'll see here in our layers box, we have just one layer showing. And it's the background layer. We can rename this layer if we want to whatever we want. Let's go ahead and rename this layer to rectangle. All I did was double click it, the name. And once it highlights, you can change it. Press enter to make it accept the change. Depending on what you're doing, you may want to leave that named as the background layer. Sometimes working with images and multiple layers, you may need to change the background depending on the visible layer. We'll get into that a little bit later in this course. Okay, so now that we have our layer named as rectangle, let's go ahead and draw a rectangle. So let's get started using some of the tools. The first tool we'll use is the rectangle selection tool. We'll use this to draw a selection area and then we'll fill it with a color. Let's click this rectangle selection tool now. Notice that it is highlighted with a blue color. This will let you know which tool is selected. Now let's go over here to the little color picker swatch. Click it and you'll see a color dialog box come up. Across the top here, you'll notice that there are several tabs where if you click on them, it'll change the view for the colors that you want to pick. This one, for instance, is very basic colors that you can pick. This one is an option. You can play around with that and just you can kind of look at the different options you have. Let's just go ahead and use the little GIMP icon tab. Now over here, sort of to the right of the big color area, are the different hues that you can choose from. I'm going to go ahead and start with a blue. So I'll click right here so I can get the blue to come up. Now, if you come over into the bigger area, this is where you can change the shading or the value and saturation of the color that you've chosen. I'm just going to pull it all the way up to the right hand corner for this really pretty blue here. Okay. We'll go over here. Let's go over here to the canvas area. Let's go ahead and draw our rectangle. You can draw it anywhere you want on the canvas. Now notice I keep calling the drawing area a canvas. Don't confuse the terms canvas with layer. The layer is simply additions to canvases. If you think about it, if you were to paint a picture, you would have the canvas. Your canvas is your basic, your overall final product. And on that canvas, you'll apply one or more layers of paint, depending on the project. This is similar for these images. You have your canvas area, and then you'll add layers as needed in order to complete your project. Okay, so let's get back to drawing our rectangle. So once the rectangle is drawn, if you want to take a look at your tools options down here, you can certainly, if you have specific width and height of a rectangle that you want, say we wanted a 400 by 200 rectangle, we can just manually type in the values there to create the rectangle of size that we want. Now notice that the size is in pixels. If you want, you can change that. It would be a good idea to get, oops, I didn't mean to highlight. It would be a good idea to get used to the term pixels. That is commonly used in web design and image manipulation. Anytime you're dealing with images, most of the time you'll hear the term pixels. Okay, so we've got our rectangle drawn here. Let's go ahead and grab the bucket fill tool. Okay, so once we have the bucket fill tool selected, go over here inside your rectangle, just click the button once, and it will fill that rectangle with the color that you've chosen. Okay, very good. Now notice that this rectangle is still considered as selected. Anytime you see these little scrolling marquees around a shape, it indicates that that shape is selected. If you see the scrolling marquee running around the entire canvas, that means that the entire layer is selected. Notice I said layer. It doesn't mean all the layers are selected. You will more than likely encounter what I have just talked about in a later tutorial. Okay, so for now, let's unselect our rectangle. Go up to the Select menu button, menu option rather, and choose None. And what that will do, it will just unselect anything that is selected. Okay, our next step will be to add a new layer. Now I showed you before where you can go up to these menu options, choose Layer, and then New Layer. Alternatively, down here there's a little icon. Looks like a little sheet of paper with the corner of it, pulled over. If you just click that, that will give you the same dialog box, a New Layer dialog box. Now I have mine is remembering the last name that I put in. I'm going to go ahead and change this one to Circle. We'll leave the defaults here. Go ahead and name yours Circle. We will be drawing a circle next. I didn't mean to change that, so. Okay, so here we go. We get another layer here. Notice now we have a circle layer and a rectangle layer. All right, and look at here. You can see where it's showing a preview for each of the layers. This rectangle layer is showing that it does have a little rectangle on it. Circle has nothing. All right, so to draw a circle, we'll go up here. We'll grab our ellipse tool. Now, an ellipse will technically draw an oval or a circle. So, you know, it just depends on what you want to do, an oval or a circle. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do a circle, a circle, because ovals are pretty easy to do. You just, you know, they're not that hard to create. A circle, you know, they have the same vertical diameter as horizontal diameter. So in order to draw a circle perfectly, let's go ahead and get an oval, but then come over here into the tools options where it says size, and let's go ahead and change that size to say, oh, I don't know, let's do 200 by 200 pixel circle. Okay, we'll press enter to make that accept. And notice now over here we do have a selection of a nice little circle. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab another color. I think I'm going to make my color, my circle yellow. Over here, these are some swatches that were recently used. So feel free to use those if they're available to you. If you need to get a new color, you come over here and grab your new color. So I'll just go ahead and select yellow here. I know I have it here already, but I'm just going to do this for the tutorial. I go ahead and make my pretty yellow color, say OK. Now remember, I do need to select the bucket fill tool in order to fill the circle with yellow. So let me click that. We'll come over here, fill the circle, and there we go. We have a nice, pretty yellow circle. Kind of looks like the sun. Okay, let's go ahead and get the selection marquee off of that. We'll go to select and then none. Okay, very good. Next, we'll be adding a triangle using our free select tool. So let's go ahead and add the new layer for the triangle. We'll name it triangle. And there we go. Now, I haven't mentioned this before, but it is worth mentioning. You do need to make sure that whichever layer that you are actually working on, that layer is in fact selected. When you're working with many layers, it can become very easy to have one layer selected when you really mean to be working on another layer. And keeping layers separate is important for the most part, because you'll see in just a few minutes how we'll be able to move our objects around on the canvas on one layer without affecting the position of objects on another layer. Okay, so now that we have the layer for the triangle created, let's go over here and grab the free select tool. And if you notice here, anytime you hover over one of these tools, it does give you the name and then just like a little bit of a description of what it does. So let's get our free select tool, make sure the triangle layer is selected. And then what we'll do is to draw a triangle, the triangle has straight edges. The free select tool will actually allow us to draw sort of either in a free form, or we can draw one straight line at a time and then just kind of connect them. So let's do that. Start by clicking and releasing, and you'll see a little dot appear. Then we'll just drag until we have our first line in the position that we want. Just for this tutorial, anything is fine. Click and release, and then draw again to the next corner. Click and release, and then go back to the starting point. Click and release. When you do that, you'll see the scrolling marquee form a triangle shape. And the only thing we need to do now is go ahead and get the bucket fill tool, select another color. I'm going to go ahead and use this pretty red color. I'll just go ahead and make some primary color geometric shapes. And then I'll just fill the triangle here with red. Pretty, huh? Okay, now let's just go ahead and unselect the triangle. Nice. Okay, next we'll cover how to reorder the layers and move objects around. Hi there. Welcome to my tutorials on getting started with GIMP. In this tutorial, I will show you how to move layers around. And when I say move layers around, I'm really referring to in which order objects on the layer appear. When working with GIMP layers, and it is true for most of the graphic image manipulation programs, that the layer which appears on the top is normally the layer that appears frontmost. The layer at the bottom is the furthest from view. So let's suppose, now if you notice here in my image, I have a rectangle layer, a circle layer, and a triangle layer. And just looking at it, we can see that the triangle appears to be in the front, the circle appears to be in the middle, and the rectangle appears to be at the back. And if you notice, the order of the layers in the layer box is top to bottom, going front to back. So if we want to change the order, let's say we want the circle to be the very frontmost layer. Let's just select the layer and then drag it up to the top right above the triangle and then drop it. Similarly, we can move the rectangle layer. Let's go ahead and move that in between the circle and the triangle layer. Okay? So now you can see that the order in which the layers appear has been changed. Now the circle appears to be at the front, whereas the triangle, well, the triangle is technically at the back, but you can't really see it because the triangle and the rectangle are not touching. Well, let's go ahead and change that. I'm going to show you how to move objects around on one layer without affecting the position of objects on another layer. Over here in the toolbox, if you come over here and find your Move tool, just click that. Down here in the Tools options, you'll see that you have two options for the Move tool. You can pick a layer or a guide, which simply means coming over here and wherever I click, whichever object I click, that's the layer that will get selected and moved. Or alternatively, we could choose to move the active layer. In this case, I can't just come over here and select the object I want to move. What we have to do now is select the layer of the object that we want to move, and then that's how we'll move our object. For the most part, picking a layer or guide is sufficient. Most of the time, you'll want to do the Move Active Layer option when the object you want to move on that layer is very, very, very small and hard to select using the Pick tool. But for right now, we have some really big, nice geometric shapes which are really easy to click and select on. Now notice as I click on each shape, over here to the right in my Layers box, the layers are selected based on the shape that I select. Okay? So let's just say I want to move the circle layer to the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to simply click and hold the circle and drag it to where I want it to go. Okay, now I'm going to go over and select the rectangle and move it. Now I'll select the triangle and move it. Okay, and again, I can come over here and choose to reorder these in any way I like. Okay, well, that was it for this tutorial. We'll pick up again with something else. All right, so you've created an image in GIMP. You have several layers. What we need to do now is save our project. What we'll do is first we'll save our project, which will preserve the layers, and when we want to open it up and edit it, it will open up in GIMP. All the layers will be there, all of the previous settings will be there. So let's go ahead and take care of that. After we do that, we'll do what's called exporting an image. So to save our project, the first thing we'll need to do is go to File and Save As. Go ahead and choose the location you want to save the file. This file happens to be a project file for GIMP. Notice that the extension is XCF. This extension is specific to GIMP. If you save it with that extension, when you go to open it, it will open in the GIMP program. All of your layers will be preserved. All of your settings that you had previously set will be preserved. And this makes it really easy to go back and edit something that needs to be changed. It's kind of difficult to change a flat image. And when I say flat, anytime you export an image, it is saved sort of as flat as opposed to layers. Basically it merges all the layers together and creates just one image, whereas saving it as the project file will preserve everything. So go ahead and find your location. If you need to create a new folder, go ahead and hit pause and create your folder. Go ahead and get into it. And then once you're done with that, go ahead and name your file. Let's go ahead and name this as, I guess, my first GIMP. Okay, whatever you want to name it is fine, and then just hit save. And what this does is it just saves it, like I said, as a project file. All right, so let's go over how to export an image. Right now we have a project file, we have many layers, and we have settings and all. What we want to do is merge everything together and create an image. we have several options. Okay, so let's go ahead and export this as a PNG with a transparent background. So the first thing you'll want to do is File and then Export As. Now this is remembering my last settings, so yours may not say PNG here as the extension. So if it doesn't, you can expand this, select File Type by extension, and you'll see all of the different extensions that GIMP is capable of producing. Just scroll down until you get to the PNG image type and select that. Then you'll need to come up here, and again, it is remembering the last setting that I used. So yours may not say My First GIMP. It will probably say something like Untitled, or it may remember some other name that you used previously. So let me go ahead and rename this as My First Transparent. Okay, so now that we have that, and once you have your image named and all, just go ahead and choose Export. You'll see a dialog box come up like this. Make sure your settings mimic my settings. You know, any of them that are checked, go ahead and check. Any that are unchecked, just leave those unchecked. Make sure your compression level is at a 9. And once you have verified all of that, go ahead and choose Export. And what that did, it just saved it as a PNG with a transparent background. All right, so that was pretty easy. Just go ahead and stay tuned for the next tutorials.